and I'm with Croaky covering the wonderful symposium we've just had held by the NHMRC and the Lowitja Institute. It's just finished, and one of our fabulous keynote speakers from Canada has been Carrie Bourassa. Carrie had an amazing presentation that had so much to actually talk about, but we thought we'd just talk about one of the things that really stood out, at least for me, which was racism, and racism as a social determinant. It's something we discussed, but I just wanted to hear some more thoughts on that.
Well, I think, it's not unique to Canada. I think that we heard that loud and clear here at the symposium, that, systemic racism is, I think what I've called it, the elephant in the room, if you will, that it's something that really is very real. It impacts us on a daily basis, certainly as Indigenous people, and that was certainly something that was said here. But I know in Canada, I say this quite often, and I actually am getting quite welcome praise for actually saying it, that racism impacts us on a daily basis, but not just on a social level or theoretical level, on a very real physical level. It's actually harming us. And there's a report out in Manitoba from a colleague of mine, Dr Carrie Bourassa, and his team, and actually it's killing our people. It's actually causing us physical harm to the point that it's killing people. And so, we have to actually come to terms with the fact that systemic racism is physically harming us, mentally and emotionally harming us. And so, we have to say at some point, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to address this? And we can't just ignore this anymore.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And that's something that, we struggle with here in Australia, and we have a health plan, which I think was mentioned by one of our presenters, that actually has racism at the core and culture at the core, but yet the practical application of that in policy and then in health services can be quite challenging, but it has a real impact for us.
Right, yeah. And the report by Dr. Carrie Bourassa, they're actually made concrete, I guess, not resolutions, but concrete recommendations about how to address this in their health region. And I think this is something that we could really learn from at a broader level. So I'm really looking forward to see how they're going to implement that in the province of Manitoba.
Can you tweet that link for us, please?
I certainly can.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, I can.
And one of the other comments you made that really struck home for me, and you probably put it much more articulately than I'm about to, but was Indigenous research is not about stocking your CV.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. If you're going to engage in Indigenous community-based research, you have to really flip that around and realize that this is not about your CV anymore at this point. You have to look for other ways. I use the example of me getting, permanency or tenure, and I had to realize that is out the window at that point. There's other ways to get that. It's not that you don't want to do that, but you have to think about your responsibility now is to the community first. If you're going to bring communities into research and into academia, then your responsibility is down to the community. And so you have to advocate for them, and that means that it's not about how many publications are you going to get out of that research anymore, because they might not ever be ready to ever publish around the research. And so you have to look for other ways to do that. And there's plenty of ways to do that. I've published on many other things and never sometimes out of a research project with the community. Yeah. And you just have to accept that and know that your responsibilities now lie elsewhere.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me institutions actually need to start challenging in amongst themselves what they value, and obviously papers are a tangible output of a research project which they can see then as a tangible value, and they need to shift their thinking to not just thinking about papers but also thinking about community. And if community is coming and saying this is good work, that actually should be on your CV. That should go towards your tenures. Is that
right? Absolutely. Valuing other things, like how much time are we investing in the communities, and what do we value? Are we so papers are one output. What are the other outputs? What else are we doing with the community that's very valuable to us? So it's putting value on other things, and instead of just the traditional outputs of peer-reviewed papers or what kinds of publications. We do many other KT outputs, but they might not be a peer-reviewed publication, right?
Nice challenge to universities, I think, to end on is to look at your own systems and look at how we can actually value Indigenous knowledge translation and within a community setting.